So just about a year ago to this date, the Cleveland Guardians were wrapping up what was an around 500 season and a season to forget with so much that went wrong. The entire pitching staff was hurt, and outside of Josh Naylor, the lineup had a few months of major slumping. And it was also Tito's last year as the manager of the team. So this past offseason, there were so many questions surrounding the Guardians. Who would be the new manager? Was there enough firepower to come back and compete? Because you knew the Dolans weren't going to spend money or do much. The organization was basically banking on the fact that they had the personnel to contend, they just needed the guys and pitching staff to stay healthy. And then we learned about the hiring of Steven Vogt. I thought at the time that this was a safe choice. He's young, has a ton of recent MLB experience because he just recently retired, so he could definitely relate with the young players on the team. And he's also just a great dude. It honestly was a why not move. And Tito was also willing to help with the transition. But anyways, for Vogt, he came in willing to learn. He was willing to take advice from anyone. He didn't act like a know-it-all, and his energy spread through the locker room like a wildfire. All the players were ready to rally behind him, and we saw it as soon as the season started. And coming into this season, I personally was so excited about the pitching rotation. They had Shane Bieber as the ace, followed by Tristan McKenzie, and then there was the exciting upcoming pitchers of Tanner Bybee and Logan Allen. And there were a lot of options for that fifth spot. But man, little did we know how fast that would change. After just 1 or 2 starts, out of the blue one morning, we found out that Shane Bieber needed surgery and was done for the year. And Dr. Six was not the same guy as before. You could tell that he also needed surgery. He was throwing timidly, like he was afraid to injure himself more. And he just got shelled every single outing. So now it was up to Bybee and Allen to lead the way. But little did we know, a guy by the name of Ben Lively was going to step in and be arguably the most consistent pitcher of the year. And then Carlos Carrasco also had a new role to be that 4th or 5th guy. And the Guardians started out the season red hot. They were scoring runs at will. It was like the team we were all watching was the exact opposite of what we saw the year before. A team that couldn't hit home runs all of a sudden was hitting for power. Even Steven Kwan was showing some pop. And before you knew it, the Guards were 10 games over 500 on top of the AL just a few weeks into the season, showing no signs of slowing down, even if people didn't want to admit it in the media. The narratives were still that this was a fluke run, they would come back down to earth, the pitching wouldn't hold up, all these things. Most likely because every year the media predicts Cleveland to be a 70-win team, finishing 3rd in the division, and they always end up winning the Central. And I think when you look at the Guards' hot start, the one player that immediately comes to mind is David Fry. He came out swinging like Babe Ruth. It was unbelievable. The numbers he was putting up in those first 2 months were similar to guys like Judge and Ohtani. He was getting on base at will and was hitting clutch home runs in big situations. And on top of that, he was the ultimate utility guy. You could put him in at catcher, he could play some first and even right field on occasion. This season really did feature a lot of unsung heroes. So many guys came in for moments at a time in the season and provided a big spark. I mean, there's Angel Martinez, Big Christmas, Manzardo, Lane Thomas, so many guys that haven't played a ton for the team yet, but have had their big moments. And the real hero of the season, believe it or not, has been Austin Hedges. Whenever I say this, so many people always come at me or try to disagree. Yes, I know he sucks at baseball. He can't hit, but what he brings to the locker room is something that you just can't find. All the guys love him, he knows when to have fun and bring the energy, and he knows when to get serious. And he is always providing encouragement to guys who are having a rough time. I think the best way to look at him is that in 2022 with him on the team, the Guards came out of nowhere and were 1 game away from the ALCS. And then in 2023, when he was gone, they never found their groove and finished below 500. And now in 2024, with him back in the clubhouse, the Guards are just a few wins away from clinching a bye from the wild card round. Another player that has been huge this season that nobody ever talks about is Will Brennan, also known as Chill Will. He quietly has been super consistent and has had his big moments, like when he hit that 2-out walk-off a few months ago. The thing I personally like a lot about him is that in big moments, with guys in scoring position, he doesn't really strike out and doesn't waste at bats. He really tries to shorten up his swing to embrace that small ball mentality. And then he knows when to swing big and show that pop. Again, I know he's not a big name player, but he's one of those guys that every good team has that just goes up, hits about 240 or 250, and gets the job done every single day. One thing that I and so many other people were worried about was that with all the success the Guards were having, the Dolans wouldn't make any trade deadline moves. I mean, you knew they weren't going to pay for anyone, but they at least had to do something, because it was clear this team needed another quality starter and a position player that could bring an extra spark. So what did the Dolans do? They brought in Matthew Boyd, who was coming back from a long-term injury with an above 5 ERA, and then they brought in Alex Cobb, a previous all-star pitcher who was way out of his prime, and then Lane Thomas from Washington. At first, it did seem like a failed deadline, and people were so pissed off. Lane couldn't buy a hit for 3 weeks, and Cobb was just okay, and ultimately ended back up on the IL with a fractured fingernail. But Boyd stepped in and really started producing, and then Lane Thomas caught fire. You can make the case that he is the best hitter on the team. It has been fun to watch. And then the star of the show, the heart and soul of Cleveland, is Jose Ramirez. When he decided to take the hometown discount to stay in Cleveland, he instantly became a legend in this city. He sometimes is hot and cold, but throughout a season, he is pretty consistent. He always hustles around the bases, he plays the game the right way, he sets the tone and example for the young guys coming up behind him. To talk more about Steven Vogt, he really has been the perfect guy to bring in as the new manager for this franchise. Is he perfect? Not even close. He has struggled with some of his decisions of when to take guys out and who to put in the bullpen. He has fallen in love with certain players who don't produce in big situations, but overall, he couldn't have done a better job at leading this young team. I mean, to take a team that was projected to finish third in the Central to a bye is pretty incredible. And I don't want to speak too soon, even with the weak starting rotation, I think that anything can happen in the playoffs. And let's talk about that. Right now, looking at the playoff bracket, I think the 2 seed would be the best spot. It would line the guards up to face either the Astros or Twins. Obviously, it would be great to not see Houston, but I would much rather see them than Baltimore. And Cleveland will have home field advantage. I think that series will come down to which team's role players hit a big home run. Will someone like Big Christmas hit that huge 2 or 3 run bomb, or will it be the starting pitcher that ultimately cost Cleveland the series? The thing that most definitely works in the guards' favor is knowing in the back of their heads, similarly to 2016, that if you get to the 6th inning with a lead, the game is basically over, because Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, and then the fireman will come in to close the game. And speaking of the fireman, Emmanuel Clase has been historic this season. If there's one guy performance-wise I can point to when I'm looking at the success Cleveland has had this season, 5 earned runs total in an 162 game season is just unheard of. And he needs to be thought of and taken seriously when it comes to the Cy Young conversation. I know a closer does not usually win, Scooball has been really good, but we are looking at 5 runs given up in a whole season. I think there is nobody more important to his team than Clase, but that is just my opinion. Let me know yours in the comments below. That's really all I got for this one. I know I couldn't cover everyone. Obviously Kwan, Schneemann at times, so many other guys have been a big part of this season. And I just can't wait to see what happens in October. There truly is nothing better than playoff baseball in Cleveland. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point in the video, and if you enjoyed it and haven't yet, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you would like to see next, and until then, I will see you all later.